forgive me for having to move the meeting. I appreciate everybody taking time on a Wednesday for coming. I think we have a packed agenda. I think it's going to be wonderful. So let's get started with the council services and Mrs. Wagner. Yes, feel free to come on up front and stand into you as well.
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
My name is Ann Wagner. I'm the Vice President of Counseling and Social Services for the YMCA Greater Monmouth County. I have with me here today Brian Elsasser, who is the School Age Director for Middletown, and I have Rena Chesky, who's my newest program manager, who's the program manager for Middletown District, also for school-based counseling. A couple of things that we wanted to share with you today on the school age side is we are at an all-time high for enrollment rates in the district. We are still accepting new applications for before and after care. Also, coming down the pipe, morning Dr. George, is we are working on implementing an inclusion aid in the school age program for before and after school, so that way we are better equipped to manage and meet the needs of the special needs population in the district. So we've already drafted it, it's posted, we are moving forward with that. So we wanted to share that information with you. Yes.
Is that for before and after school inclusion aid, is that 1 aid per school?
What, it's going to be based on need, and what the ratio we're looking at is that it will either be 1-on-1 based on need or 1-to-5. So depending upon which schools need it, that's what we will look to bring on board. Depending upon the need. So I don't believe district-wide everybody's going to need one, but I know that there's a couple of schools where there's a higher population of special needs. We're going to look to target those schools first and then move on from there.
Excellent, great, thank you.
So it's not, we don't have it yet, but it is coming quickly.
Okay, good.
But and if you have any questions about that, either Brian or Stacey Lascella can answer those questions for you. Over on the counseling side, I have seen many of you in the last few weeks. We are officially licensed district-wide to provide mental health counseling in each of the schools in the district, from elementary all the way up through the high school. I've been sending email communications with the referral forms, with the program flyer. I'm sending around today to you the program flyer so that way you can see how it works. But I wanted to share with you guys that we're ready to go. We're accepting new referrals, and I'm staffed in a pretty good place where as they come in, we're assigning them very quickly. For those of you who don't know how the model works, the school works with the parents to identify which student would benefit from the service. They send in a referral to us, we process the referral, we reach out to the parent, we schedule the initial appointment, we do the initial assessment, and we commence services. It happens right during the school day. We don't take them out of any of the major curriculum classes, but it also alleviates the obstacles of transportation, scheduling, all of the things, because everybody knows kids are busy, and as soon as you leave the school, everybody has 100 things to do. But very exciting that we can offer it district-wide. And I was here today to be able to answer any questions for if you guys had questions about the program, how it works, who's the point of contact in each school. Does anybody have any questions? I knew there would be.
Just one thing, the machine's on really loud, so it's hard to hear you.
That's what I'm trying to get someone to come and turn them down. Yes, it's very hard to hear.
I'll yell this way.
Thank you. Does this work through insurance or is this through IEPs?
It does. It works through insurance. We bill out Aetna, Blue Cross Blue Shield, and Medicaid are the three that we offer in the schools. For those families who are uninsured, we do have some grant funding, and we also do a significant amount of fundraising because we're a non-for-profit to be able to offer the service at a sliding scale for them. So if you have a family who doesn't have the resources, reach out to me. We'll do a scholarship application with them, and we'll see what we can do to help make the service something that they can utilize as well.
This is not really about the model, but I'm wondering if at a high level you could tell us the types of issues you're seeing at the different age levels, different school levels.
Absolutely. So we are actually in 89 schools between Monmouth, Ocean, and Middlesex counties. And the trend right now in school-based programs as a whole, regardless of the district, regardless of the demographic, is depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of thoughts of self-harm, which is the most concerning. School refusal, basic lack of coping skills, so they get overwhelmed real quick. They don't know how to manage what's going on in their lives. That's the theme.
Is there a way, when you, being that you do have kind of a wide audience you can look at with different schools, where you can kind of identify this, like if you have a lot of children who are showing signs of anxiety, let's say, like teasing back what sort of pressures there are, is it like in school or out of school that's causing it, is it social or academic? Are they at schools where they're taking really high level classes because they're offered versus not? Like, are there any trends that you can pull?
I'm sure it's
might
something
help
that we can
inform
dig
us?
deeper if the district wants us to take a look. I can tell you from the information that we have on a regular basis and the conversations that we have in supervision with our staff, a lot of it is the social emotional component, you know, the constant contact with friends, the social media aspect. Kids today are under a microscope. When we were growing up, at least when I was growing up, it was, you know, you leave the house and come home when the streetlights came on for dinner. Now they're connected, they're on their phones, they're on iPads, they're on the internet, they're doing YouTube videos, you name it, they are all over the web and they don't have any downtime. And so their ability to kind of self-regulate is what causes the increase in anxiety 9 times out of 10.
Thank you.
This might be more for the administration. I'm finding that people don't know about this service. We brought it up at the last PTA meeting. You guys were here a couple months ago at another PIC. And I don't think there's wide awareness of this and how it works and what insurance you take. So I don't know how to get the message out, but anybody I speak to and discuss it with say they've never heard of it. Or, you know, I don't know what the best way to communicate it is, but I've heard a lot of people don't know this program exists in our schools today.
Well, the good news is Lincroft literally just launched at the beginning of the school year, at the beginning of the new year. So it has not been a service that was available in that school. We can work with the principal
So
on
what have we
sending.
done to tell them now that
It's
it's here?
literally, I think we just sent out the communication 2 weeks ago that we're good to go. We got the state licenses. And so I've been emailing the principals, and what I can do is I can circle back with the principals and ask them if they can do the virtual backpack. Mary Ellen or Dr.
We
George?
will too. We've done articles in our newsletter. We'll do a follow-up article in our newsletter. Now that you said that, you know, Chris, we'll make sure we're in this week's newsletter with that launch. And, you know, and we'll talk to the principals to make sure that the principals put the
Maybe even a
information out.
Q&A. I mean, like, you know, it works like this is how I think that people just
And
seem
that's what the flyer is.
people are understanding it.
So both, like the front side is high level, but the back side kind of goes over what the insurances are, how the program works, issues that we'll address. So that way, you know, parents at least have a piece of paper that they can refer to. And all you have to do is go in and ask your principal or ask your school counselor, and they can help you get connected with the service.
Can we get a PDF of this?
Yes, I believe I actually sent it to Chris or Pat Ranella last week, but I can.
We'll make sure it's in our,
The PIC meeting minutes, and we can also put a link on the PIC site to the counseling URL, whatever, if you have like a landing page where we can link off of my PIC page to or our PIC page to. We'll do that as well.
then we can all work together, make sure. we get it. That's great.
Perfect. I'll get that information to you by the end of the week.
What do you guys do to address the children who maybe want to do this counseling service, but they don't want the other kids to know that they're going, and there's like a bit of a stigma?
It's done very discreetly. That's one of the reasons why we do it in the school, is it removes the stigma, and also being the why. Like when you go to an outside provider and you walk into a mental health facility, there's a lot of stigma attached to that. But because we come to you in the school, it alleviates a lot of that stigma. And when you think of the why, there really isn't a lot of stigma with the why, because we're known for so many things, right? That you're like, I'm going to talk to my Y counselor. You could be talking about camp, you could be talking about, you know, getting a job in the after school program. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to a counselor. And we do it very discreetly. I mean, prior to right now, we've been in 10 schools in the district. We do a significant amount of work, Thorne, Harmony, Fort Monmouth, Ocean Avenue, and it has never been a concern.
I'll also attach the data dashboard so that they can see just how much
We're doing. Perfect.
This is something maybe just for another topic, a general discussion for along the lines of mental health. I have some friends that are high school nurses, and they see a lot of kids coming in with not really an illness, but they need a timeout, and that's a safe place to be, just to decompress and self-regulate. And I just wondered, are there other alternatives that are safe places, like sensory rooms or like a yoga space or some place you can meditate, just some sort of timeout places, maybe at those higher grades, where instead of being at the nurse's office, a student can go just somewhere to, you know, get themselves calmer back in, back into gear. But this is just a thought. I don't know if you guys do anything along that, or if that's just more of a...
that have those spaces, and they're like a calming room.
Right.
That's really that would be probably a district-wide conversation, not necessarily, I mean, it's something I can contribute to and be a part of in planning if that's the direction the district wants to go in, but not necessarily something that I could make happen tomorrow.
So are we talking as it relates to before and after care?
No, this is during the day. During the day in high school, a lot of kids just take a time out at the nurses.
So separate.
Yeah, more...
Either before or after care or counseling.
And it might not rise to the level of counseling, but just a place to kind of get your thoughts together that's safe and calming. So it's along the lines of this, but maybe not quite at the level of counseling.
I know during a 3-4 block in the middle of the day, kids have access to the full school, right? And they go to a lot of different places, and I've personally witnessed areas in both of those schools where kids go, with flexible seating, still supervised, but at the end of the day, and some unsupervised where they can go and decompress and just, talk with their classmates. But I'm not sure if that's specifically what you're talking about, but it's something that we can discuss with the high school principals and get back to you.
Any other questions about counseling, childcare?
Okay.
All right. I look
Thank
forward to
you.
working with all of your
Thank you
schools.
very much.
Good on you guys.
All right, we'll move on to the overview of the budget with Mrs. Doherty now. No longer Ms. Gallagher, it's now Mrs. Doherty.
Thank you.
Still the same old lady?
Yes, the same old.
Same old lady.
Good morning, everybody. I just wanted to give a brief overview of the presentation we did at last week's board meeting. We're also doing a presentation or workshop at tonight's board meeting, so I would encourage all of you to come and listen to that. It'll be a build upon what we talked about last week. We are in the process of compiling the 2021 budget. As most of you are aware, because you are regular attendees at our meetings, we are facing continued challenges financially, making everything balance and including all of the initiatives and programs and improvements that we need to make here in the district. So we've been working on this really since the fall. But as I've said before, budgeting is really at this point a year-round process. But in earnest, we've been putting numbers together and everything since the fall. I'll just touch on a couple of things that we talked about last week. We did spend almost an hour at the board meeting, and I know some of you were there, and I don't want to rehash everything again. It's up on the website and it's up on YouTube, but we talked about a recap of the current year's budget, how we did lose about $550,000 in state aid for the current year. We did have a tax levy increase of 2%, and we did make some changes in the budget in order to make that work. But one of the drivers that we had last year that enabled us to move our budget forward without making major changes was that we were fortunate enough that due to our experience, our claims experience and so forth, we actually realized a reduction in our health insurance last year of about $2 million. So that really helped us put together the budget for the current year. Now that's not something that will recur. You can't expect that to happen every year. So we are looking at now facing a budget where we're losing more state aid, and we will not be realizing that sort of I don't want to call it a windfall, but it was really an adjustment in our premium that will happen every once in a while, but that's not going to happen this year. So just touching on some of the other things that were in the slides, again, they're up on the website. We're projecting to lose about another $850,000 in state aid for this year, so that will again reduce our revenue. There in the slide deck that we showed last week, we talked about factors that impact state aid, one of them being enrollment, the other one being the formula that they use to calculate it, and there's information on that in the slides. Our enrollment continues to tick down, and as they do the 6-year rolling average to compute our state aid, we're losing the previous years where our enrollment was over 10,000, and now it's continuing to go down. We talked about the explain it, and, it's something that we'll continue to talk about going forward as we talk about the budget. So we talked about the fact that a 2% increase on the tax levy for next year would generate revenue of about $2.8 million. So that would be what would be available to add to the budget from our 2% increase. Now, we also had bank cap available that we could utilize of a little over $1 million, and that was generated from a previous budget, not this current year, but the year before, where the tax levy was actually less than 2% of an increase. So the difference there, we're allowed to bank and utilize within the next 3 years if we need to use that in the budget. So basically, it would be taking the amount from the 2% that we didn't use and use it in another year if we need it. So we do have that available, $1,059,000. We also talked about grants and how they've continued to help us with our budget, the IDEA and the Title I and all that, with what's known as the ESEA funds. We don't expect a large increase in that. We're hoping that it remains constant with the current year, so we do utilize that, and we'll be talking about that more tonight too, about how that helps us fund some salaries and other things here in the district. We don't have any excess surplus to use for the next year's budget. We didn't have any in this current budget either, so that trend has gone down. We do have some money available in reserves, capital and maintenance reserves. In our maintenance reserve, we have a little over $500,000, bless you, to utilize, but we have never utilized that in our budget. We've basically saved that for things that are unexpected, that come up during the year that would be significant and we would not be able to accommodate within our budget. We've had some drawdowns on it over the last few years, but we have not made, we established that reserve back in 2011 or 2012, I think 2011, with $1 million, and we have never put any more money into it. We're now down to $555 because we've utilized it, but there is even some things this year that we may be looking at to take money out of maintenance reserve to fund that we're not budgeted for. As far as salaries go, they do represent a large part of our budget. This is the first time in a while that we've had contracts with all of our bargaining units going into the next year. We've had to do the last few budgets without having settlements on some of our units. So we are able to at least know what that is and move that forward. We're still looking at staffing. I mean, that's going to be going on for a while. Looking at enrollments and looking at schedules and trying to, salaries makes up the majority of our budget. So unfortunately, that's really the only area that we can make large gains on, but we don't even, at this point, we're not even thinking, we have consolidated quite a few positions over the last couple of years, and it's not looking like that will be the case for this year, but we are continuing to look at it. We are actually hoping that we don't need to add staff because of some areas that we have, that the enrollments, may dictate that. And there's charts and information in the slide deck that we did last week to show you more precise information. We are also, as we do every year, looking at the area of benefits. That's another large area of our budget. We will not know our actual number for a little while. The way that works is our coverage or our premium or whatever plan we're using runs from July to June 30th. And so we start the process of formally negotiating and looking at options to go forward in the fall, but we really don't finalize whatever the arrangement is going to be until the spring. Now, last year, we were able to get final numbers before we had to approve our tentative budget, so that we were able to incorporate that. That doesn't always happen. We get updated information and we update our budget as we have it, but that's another driver of our budget. We have some new curriculum adoptions that we're looking at having to do for next year, and those are included in our budget right now for next year. So again, we'll be talking about that more tonight, but that is also going to be driving up some of the costs too, because they're things that we did not have to purchase this year. We have put together a list of things we'd like to address in facilities, things that need to be addressed. There's no large projects planned. We simply don't have the funding for a large-scale project at this point. But there are some things that need to be taken care of, and we have those detailed on the slide, and we'll talk more about that tonight as well. We also talked about the average age of our facilities and the age of all the individual buildings. That's included in the slide deck. Our newest school is High School South, which was built in 1974. Our newest elementary school is New Monmouth, which was built in 1968. So although there's been renovations and additions to these schools, the cores of these schools and the basic design and so forth, they're aging. We have schools that go back all the way to 1928. Being this is 2020, unbelievably now, that means those schools are approaching 100 years old at this point. So the point is, we do have buildings that need improvements and repairs and work, and that is something that we have to be able to address within our budget. We also had some slides on transportation. Transportation represents, $10–11 million in our budget. We do show, just to give you an idea, the percentage of students that are transported by school. Overall, we transport, I think it's about 55% of the students across the district are eligible for busing at this point, so a little over half. But it is interesting to look, some schools have a lower percentage, some schools, we have schools that all the way up to 100% of the students are transported. So it's interesting to look at, and that's included in there too. But we will be meeting with the board tonight, a public meeting on next step on our budget, and we will be presenting where we are right now. We're going to emphasize that the budget is not done. We have, I'll tell, and it will be in our presentation tonight. We have not, at this point, balanced our revenues with our expenses. We have a gap there that we're going to have to continue to look at, to address. But we, want to share where we are right now and what things we are looking at to, close that gap going forward. Just to give you a timeline, our tentative budget will be approved by the board at its March 18th meeting. It's due to the county office of the Department of Ed by the 20th of March. After that, the Department of Ed, the county superintendent will review it, give it back to us, ask for any clarification or anything that they might need. Then the board will have to approve a final budget sometime at the end of April, early May. We are also, not going to know our state aid officially until after the governor's budget address. Normally, it's 2 days, within 2 days after the governor's budget address, which is usually around the third week of February. But last year, the governor said that they didn't want to release the state aid till March 7th, and we didn't get it till March 7th, so it's not guaranteed that we'll have it. But we don't feel that there would be a significant change there from what we're projecting as our decrease for this year. So that's basically what we covered last week. If you want more detail, it's up on the website, and we encourage you all to come tonight. Yes?
So tonight, will you tell us what the gap number is right now, and then what some of the potential ideas for cuts are to try to make up for it?
We will address what our deficit is. I'm not going to tell you, it's a spoiler.
Okay, no, I know, I'm asking for you to reveal it.
And we know you
have to come to the meeting.
But tonight, we will know the number.
Yes,
Okay.
there is a gap there, and we will tell you the things that we are looking at. There's not going to be a list of things that are coming out of the budget at this point.
Okay.
Because
We've already worked through a lot of that process.
Right.
We've already had a lot of meetings with departments and done a lot. I mean, the gap as it exists right now is not the gap we were even looking at a couple weeks ago.
Right, we have been able
Okay.
to, to work
Trim.
it down,
Okay.
already internally, but we're not there yet.
Okay.
So
We are continuously having meetings with administrators. We had with the whole curriculum department earlier in the week, continuing to do that, to work collaboratively to pare it down. That's
Okay.
where we are right now.
But I guess and we'll know more tonight, I know, but the number that's there, is it astronomical? Do you feel like it is some slimming can get us there, or there need to be big cuts in order to
no, it's
close
going
it?
to take some major moves,
Okay.
but we still have, it's only February 5th, right? Today's the 5th, right? There are still moving parts that we don't know for sure, what those costs are going to be. I mean, we have our best estimate right now, but, it's, until we get really more into March, some of these things are not going to crystallize fully.
They're
So-
projections.
Got it.
Yeah, they're projections, so there are best projections at this point, and we're still, looking to get more information, but we're not finished.
Okay.
So, but we want, we're gonna share with everybody where we are right now.
In terms of health insurance, I'm sure that's something that could really sway the budget. That's not already predetermined in the contracts, in the
No,
union contracts?
What employees are entitled to as far as their plan design and so forth, yes, that's in contract, but how we provide that is not dictated by contract. I mean, as we've talked about in other meetings, right now, we're on a fully insured platform where we pay our premium every month and we get our insurance. There are other ways to look at funding insurance. I mean, self-insurance is the most predominant, besides fully insuring, but we look at all options every year. So, each year we have to figure out, well, what can we get as a renewal on a fully insured plan, which would be less risk, versus, how much can we save if we self-insure, use another type of funding platform where there might be more risk, but that might save the district money. And if we feel it's an acceptable risk, we would move forward with it. These are things we look at every year, and we have been looking at, and we're very deep into looking at, but we don't have a final decision on that. So right now, what we have built into the budget for health benefits is the best projection that we have on a fully insured platform if we didn't make any changes. So, we have that increase in there, but even that, typically over the course of the months where we're looking at it, will tend to decline because, whoever's representing us will negotiate with the carriers and lower that percentage. And, there's been years where we've been able to lower it all the way down to zero. Like I said, we had a decrease, but then there's years that, our claim experience is so bad that, it goes up 15%. And there's nothing we can really do sometimes to help that, but we try to manage it. Some of the things we do is, when we're negotiating, we'll look for 2-year renewals, or we'll look for a rate cap the following year. With Horizon right now, we have a rate, an increased cap of 10%, so our renewal will not be more than 10%. Right now, we're projecting it'll be lower than 10% if we go that route. But these are things that we do to safeguard ourselves, from having it go, like this. So.
Amy, what was the number we stand to lose this year in state funding? I'm taking notes, I want to get the number right.
It was, it's 850,000 and change. I mean, the exact number will be on the slides tonight, but yeah, it's roughly 850,000 on top of the 550 that we lost last year, so.
And how much is it teacher's salary? What percentage? It's like 75% in salaries, right, for the district?
Well, for the salaries, when we were looking at it last week, I think we said, without looking at the slide, it was about 62%, but then when you add benefits on top of it, it's, closer to 79, 80% of the budget.
Okay, thank you.
And benefits, I mean, the main driver of benefits, of course, is health insurance, but there's also things like workers' comp, Social Security, pension, that all goes into benefits as well. So,
Salaries are 62 from the deficit.
62%, which may change depending upon, how we go forward. But not significantly. Okay, well, I encourage everybody to come tonight to get more information. If you can't make it tonight, the presentation will be up on the website, and you can view it there. So, thank you all for your attention.
Thank you, Ms. Starr. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, let's go on to using e-signatures on school permission slips.
That was a question last month about whether our current data system for our students can accomplish that. So I talked to our student system data person, and she said, yes, PowerSchool can do it. But we have to use a system within PowerSchool called the Returning Student Registration System, which we don't use right now. Right now, we just, when we roll over and, when you prepare schedules, you do it on what's called the dead side, and then we roll over to the live side, and that's when they're released to the public and you can see them. So when that rollover happens, that's when we have to, that's when we can use this returning system, student registration system. But it'll require parents to go in and do something before they actually see the schedule. So what, some of the most common things that will happen is you'll sign the media releases and all those other forms that you have to sign, then you'll be able to see the schedule. So, yes, it's possible we can't do it this year because it has to coincide with the release of schedules. But first, we're going to, at our next admin council meeting with all our building administrators, we'll talk about it because there is going to have to be some change in procedures. Right now, paper permission slips are collected by the teachers, and they make sure they have all the slips that they need. Those procedures are going to have to change. It'll probably go to a front office person who will manage that because the permission slips will have to be uploaded for parents and then reports, created to ensure all the parents have signed. So there's a little bit of work to do, but the bottom line is yes, we can do it. And if all the principals and building administrators are okay with it, we'll get it going for next year. Okay? Yes.
What's the big benefit of moving to electronic? I know that might sound silly, but I know when I've gone on school trips as a chaperone, the teacher will hand me the paper permission slips for my kid so that if God forbid something happens, I can get to their parent right away. So there still has to be a paper, right?
Convenience for parents.
Okay.
That would be my only reason for doing it. I mean, honestly, on the school end, it might be a little bit more work because we have to print out all those slips after they're done, and we have to create new procedures. I don't know if it'll be any more work. It'll just be different to determine that every child has turned in a permission slip. But it would just be an online thing where it's the parent can't say, oh, I lost the permission slip or whatever. They can just go on, sign it, and do it. But these are some of the things we'll talk to the administrators about. Our student data person will come in and explain how it works, and we'll make that decision whether to go or not.
If there's a cost associated with the trip, how are you going to coordinate it? Because usually a permission slip, you attach the cost of the trip to it, and then you'd send it.
That would have to be separate because you're not going to be able to pay for the trip through our Power School. Right now, I know you pay for lunches, but that's through a whole nother system, and there's actually a cost to that if you just do like one time, put your money in one time. So if there's a cost, you'd still have to send in a check separately, or however you would, pay for that trip. You wouldn't be able to do that, but you would be able to sign things. You'd be able to sign maybe more of a convenience would be the media, release, and there's a few other things that you sign in the beginning of the year. So that would be helpful. But that would be it.
Now, maybe not strip permissions, but like that kind of stuff influence the media. Versus like where you don't need a check. You know what I mean? Like you're saying like the media permissions.
Like going to Parsi Park or something like that, you could set up. But it wouldn't be in the beginning of the year for the permission slips because they're pretty much specific dates. You might not even have a date of a permission slip at the beginning of the year. So that would have to be something that would be uploaded and then pushed out to the parents through the parent portal. Yes?
So just to clarify, so like the day of the trip, would the teacher get the hard copies, or would she be able to just say, call up the app and look look electronically at everybody?
Those
like
are the
Rachel was
procedures
saying.
that we have to work out with our student data system supervisor. She would have to go in and let us know. But I'm sure it can be printed out, and it would probably be depending on how the principal and how the teacher wanted to do it. I mean, some teachers want it there in front of it, like Rachel said, especially if you're going on a trip to a place that you have a lot of parent chaperones, like a zoo or something, where each parent has 3 students that they're responsible for. They may want to have that right there in front of them that says, peanut allergy, this, that, and the other thing that would be on the permission slip. So it might be a case-by-case basis, but those are all the procedures that have to be worked out before we can get this started. So we would do that before the end of the year if we were going to move in that direction. Okay?
Kind of just a
That's okay.
number one, but from a feedback perspective, if as a parent I have to do something offline and something online, that's actually less convenient. So I think having the paper permission slip, it's always obvious. That's my reminder. Write the check, stick it in the envelope with the slip. If you have to go online and log into Power School to sign permission, then go find your checkbook, then find an envelope, then make sure you write on it that it's for the school. Like, it almost makes it more complicated.
We're not pushing
No, I know.
signatures because that was one of the concerns that had been brought up a couple of years ago when we, were looking at this system. But it was brought up here, and we thought maybe it was the consensus of parents to go. So, it's definitely not a done deal that we're going that way.
When it's done, like the media slips or a free trip or whatever, where you don't have to then do anything offline, I think it's great to do it online. But if there has to be an offline component for the transaction piece, I feel like don't add and split it online offline, if that makes sense. So if it has to be money, keep it offline. If it's no money, put it online maybe. I
Have
don't
the
know.
capability, but don't use it unless it makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see the benefit for things like the vision test. I mean, I feel
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I feel like you get a million papers, you lose half them.
Mm-hmm.
Water spilled in the backpack, whatever. But I mean, besides trips, I could see a huge benefit to e-signatures for some of those little things.
So if it makes sense,
Yeah.
use it in those instances.
Yeah.
And if it's gonna be more work for everybody, just go and save the paper. Okay, makes sense.
Okay, if there are no other questions from Mrs. Walker, we'll move on to Mrs. Pickus and new requirements for withdrawing from AP classes.
So my understanding is that, I think the question came up from parents after there was a meeting at High School South, a PTA meeting, and Ms. Nicholas was describing our efforts to be more transparent. There's always been procedures for withdrawing from classes or changing classes. That's been long established prior to even any of us being in curriculum. So probably 10 or more years. But what we have been experiencing in the last couple of years is as we work to be more efficient with staffing, especially over the last 2 or 3 years, where staffing did make up, as Ms. Doherty just said, a large portion of how we survived some of these state aid cuts, and kept our programs intact by identifying where there was ways to better efficiently manage and assign staff. We realized that the movement of students once school has started, or the request of students to change classes is creating problems. That trickled down not only for the student who's trying to make the change, but it's impacting other students. So we wanted to reinforce to students and parents the responsibility that comes with signing up with courses and making their decisions when they're choosing what courses they're going to take, because there is consequence ultimately if you want to change. And we had some issues this year at the beginning of the year where students indicated and worked through the whole summer that they wanted to be in certain classes like AP level classes, and then it comes the first, second, third week of September and they want to move, and not only can they not move out of an AP class to an honors level class, all the honors levels classes are now staffed and maxed out, they have to go all the way down to CP, and parents and students were upset about that. But the way the schedules build, and this is common practice across any high school that I'm aware of, the schedule builds to the student requests. So what's entered in as a request is how the schedule evolves and how the staff assignments are created. So I know the directors are here. They were going to give further explanation. They've been working very hard with both of the sets of guidance departments at both North and South. And really our attempt to best educate parents and students as to this is a serious decision and these are all the things you need to keep in mind when making this decision, because we want them to be aware that changing is not always easy, and we want everyone to be fully informed when they make these decisions and they go into these programs. So I think, Devin, you were going to take the lead on a little bit of the discussion, and then everybody else was going to jump in, right?
Yeah, I think that was the large gist of it was exactly as Ms. Pickus, explained, is that what happens is that when we get into September and now suddenly a large number of students want to change their courses, it creates issue. So when we have students who want to change electives, the policy is pretty much you get what you get, you don't get upset. And if there's an empty seat, it's very easy to transfer between regular college prep level electives. But when we're talking about AP level courses, it's a whole different ballgame. And so the reason for I think we first started calling it an application, and then it was more of a contract. But what we're asking for students and parents to fill out with their together and then submit to guidance is really to kind of condense all of the information that we have about AP, what the responsibilities of the student are, what the expectations are, and then to really have a serious conversation. Again, parents, student guidance. How many of these classes are you thinking about taking before you then make that commitment? Because students would come down to guidance and then sign up for all of them that they might be interested in, and then kind of kick the can down the road and not make the decision of which ones they were going to stick with until later. So this is us trying to make sure that students are really thinking about that decision now, because for us it's very important to make that decision now and stick with it. So on the other side, what we've put into place is a more specific add drop period for the high schools. So there's usually been about a 2-week window in September, the very first 2 weeks of school, where students can add or drop classes, like mostly electives, based on their interests. And again, it's you can switch a class as long as there's an open seat. But again, when we're talking about AP classes, and there's a difference in you don't just sign up for an AP class. actually be involved in more of those conversations when students want to drop the classes, and that when they do want to drop a class, that it's not done on a whim. It's not because it was a bad day in class or they had one low test grade or the summer assignment looks a little scary or very scary. That we want students to actually kind of struggle through it a little bit, and see, is it worth struggling through? Kind of one of the thoughts is that we'd rather see students struggle through while you have all the supports in the high schools before you go anywhere else where you have fewer supports. Kind of working with our students to struggle through that to their ability is where we'd like to see that happen. And then we have student level changes all the time throughout the year. I think yesterday and the day before, we're getting emails about students who want to drop levels because they tried for half the year, and you know what, I'm just not cut out for it. And every time we say, yes, let's work through this, let's figure it out, it's not that we're necessarily holding kids in classes that they can't handle, it's that we're trying to make sure that they can handle or can't handle before that decision is made very quickly.
So, as of right now, I do, my understanding, because I have one in elementary, one in high school. My understanding is that you can just sign up for it. Is there discussion about having a prerequisite? Like some of the classes, you can't sign up for one class if you haven't taken a prerequisite. Is there discussion about maybe making a prerequisite to go into AP classes, as opposed to just saying, I want to do this, I can sign up?
Sure, so there are certain classes, and there's slides somewhere, where we actually listed out the classes that have prerequisites and the classes that don't have prerequisites. And most of them are is coursework that's been done as opposed to grades. What we decided to do is get rid of the grade prerequisite. So if you wanted to take AP Calculus, you no longer have to get a specific grade in your calculus or your pre-calculus class. It's if you've demonstrated that you can do it and you've passed pre-calculus and you've probably talked to your teacher and your guidance counselor and this is a challenge that you're up for, then take it. But the courses that have specific work that need to be done beforehand, like for me it's AP Biology and Chemistry, you need to take Biology and Chemistry before you take those AP level classes. So that's what we have in place now is course specific. If there's a prereq, it's based on content, not based on grade.
And that's noted in the course selection guide if there's prerequisites.
Right, but for instance, AP US History, there's no prerequisite for that.
Just
Is
taking
that-
US 1.
Just take
Right,
US
but
one.
everybody, they all take US 1.
Right.
Whether it's CP or honors. So, and my understanding is APUSH is particularly challenging because there's a lot of reading, a lot of writing. So was there any discussion about having the kids understand that, not just in when they go to the interest meetings?
So yes, we have a very long meeting before registration starts with the guidance departments, and there was significant discussion this year with the guidance counselors regarding conversations they need to have with students when they express interest, because there's no hard and fast cookie cutter rule that we can create because every kid is different, and we don't want to set up obstacles for students. We'd rather work, if students express an interest, we'd rather work through them. And to your point, the guidance counselors were specifically told to review the students' reading and writing past performance in regards to English classes, their standardized assessment scores, because of the fact that specifically in social studies, what most students don't realize is I have a passion for history, but do I have the skill sets to comprehend the large amount, as you said, of documents and very deep and rich, complex text that's going to be presented to them, and then the type of writing that's going to be required for them to be able to explain their thinking.
Okay.
So,
How much is that expressed in these interest meetings?
well, we had a very, we don't, we really had a very detailed conversation this year with the guidance counselors about that, extensive. And it's our hope that that's being carried out, by the guidance counselors as we've expressed and described to them.
Now, do you think it behooves the school to have anyone who has interest has to attend those meetings, so it's clear?
Well, I will say this, the teachers of those courses, especially the ones where there is a significant, what's the word I'm looking for, reliability in looking at previous data, student achievement records, like where because not every class can you look at previous standardized achievement data and have a good predictability, of how the student will do, Yes, in social studies courses, English courses, there's that reliance on predictability, probably in some math courses. Art, maybe not so much. Science, because the content is so different. When you're going from chemistry to biology or environmental science, maybe not so much. But to your point, the teachers are having conversations with students ahead of time. They're having interest meetings. A lot of times when they meet with them and talk about the summer assignments, that's discussed. We've met with the teachers. The teachers are having those conversations with students. I know, like, for example, when we had our middle school, high school information fair, some teachers were there that night and students from AP courses, and they specifically spoke to, this topic.
It just seems that this February deadline for signing this contract, you see, it's early. I mean, are they really ready to commit like that and, have it follow through well when you start high school year?
It's early for us too. We remember, in order to do the best we can in predicting personnel and staff for budget purposes, we had to move up timelines. And this is the second year in a row because of the need to be as accurate as we have to be now with personnel, because it is such a key driver to the budget. We've had to move up those timelines.
If possible, if I may make a suggestion for the high school level. My daughter's come home and told me that the teachers have expressed this, so they are definitely doing that between counselors and teachers. It might be helpful though if that specific information were pushed out to the parents of the kids that are, because I have not personally, I can tell you, I know we're not supposed to bring it personal, but I know that information has been pushed out to me. I am fortunate that my kid talks to me. So it might be helpful, because I know you're having the parents try to be involved and understand the weight of these courses, to push out to the parents of the kids that are trying to do this, make sure that they understand that as well.
Right.
So they
Well, we
can
can
sign
look
a
at the information that was given out in January at the parent-student information
But in
night.
terms of
But that information was discussed, so we can look at what was handed out and discussed and think of a way to disseminate it to people who maybe weren't able to participate
yeah,
in
no,
January.
but for for APUSH, for the AP US History 2, the AP Lit or Lang, those specific classes that based on past data are, may not be suited to certain students that haven't made certain achievements with either coursework or standards. To let those parents know your child is interested in this class, you should have a discussion with them because of X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Just because
That's what I'm referring to, though. That was all discussed in January, so we can look at the information that was used at that presentation and push it out. That was all addressed. So it's your point is getting it to the masses. Or people who weren't able to attend.
I've been to a bunch of those, and while I do remember you guys have been very good about saying this coursework is rigorous, this coursework is difficult, it requires a lot of time management, there's a lot of special skill sets, that's why you guys offer classes in the summer for those skill sets, specific to certain courses. I think that's, just not.
Yeah, this year we did that. That's what I'm saying. We have that information already, so we'll do that.
Okay.
We'll push it out.
And we'll connect that information to this document too, so.
But, I'm sorry, just to this point, I guess why, I call the guidance department or I contact the teacher to have the conversation. I just don't know why parents aren't proactively just making that. I feel like there's so much reliance on the school to push. And I get it, we want the information, but the parents can have a conversation, right? If your student comes home with they get a printout of this is what I'm looking to do the next year. Well, is AP the right class? Or you have that conversation and then talk with the staff. They're so willing to talk to the parents. I guess I just don't understand why we're not looking at that.
I also just want to piggyback on that. So as a parent who moved 2 students through high school and are now done, especially as they get to junior and senior year, what I found in reflecting on my own parenting, by the time I got to my second one, I didn't make the call. I talked to my child and said, this is what you need to do when you go in to meet with your counselor. Because we are preparing them for a world that quickly they're going to be entering in 18 months or so, at that point, where the college is not going to talk to you as a parent. Right. So we have to educate them. And this is talking about resiliency and going back to what Ms. Wagner was talking about, coping skills. How do you manage that adult world? And this is, as Mr. Roscoe was saying, this is the time where they have supports in place, and we need to model that for them. I absolutely encourage parents to call. I'm not saying I don't, but
Well, I have a ninth grader, but I agree.
do
with
both.
I think
You know, especially once you get to that high school level. You know, educate them, model for them. These are the kind of questions. Go talk to your guidance counselors, and then what I would do is call and make sure they went. You know, did they actually go and talk to the counselor?
But you have to have a conversation with the child, because the kids are coming home going, oh, hey, I'm being told I should double up in math. Well,
Right.
should you double up in math?
Right.
We're not following them.
Right.
Right? Like, does it make sense?
What your
for
friends
you?
might be doing. Yeah.
But that's what happens. They come home, I should be taking AP this, I should be taking, well,
Right.
but is it right for you?
Right.
The other point to this too, I just want to point out that we spent a lot of time on the research as it relates to rigorous coursework for high school students and then success later on in college. And there is some very significant data that we've included as part of our professional development for our staff as it relates to this, that says even students that attempt advanced placement courses and the significant increase in number of those students that then choose to go on to college. And the predictors of success, and Kim really hit on it, and I always told my kids in high school, all four of them, that there's not a parent portal, there's a student portal. There's a parent report card that comes home, and that's how you're going to be judged with me, and that's Judgment Day. So it's up to you to make sure that you do that, and thank God we did that, because as Kim pointed out, when you get to college, you don't get anything, except for, if you want me to pay for next semester, I want to see the grades from this semester. That's how we went
They
about
might
that,
talk
right?
about billing.
And they might talk to, yeah, they might talk to you about bill, and that's about it. And even they have to submit it, but it's with our money, right?
But the education for parents that I'm finding as a new parent, I know nothing about where I'm heading from a college perspective. I have no prior experience, so I wind up relying on other parents who've gone through it, or, you know, and, which I feel like is almost a little bit of a scary situation, right? Like, there needs to be some sort of parental guidance to be able to help guide your child, right? You know.
Yeah, and you know that the parent groups. I know at Middletown High School South, and at North, they have parents and students come and talk to students and parents about what this process was like through the applications. It's stuff we discuss, even I discuss at my meetings with the student forums. They bring it up to me and their perspective and how we can improve on it, which is always great, right? So keeping that conversation going for all parties is really, you just had yeah, I always see from the South all of it's on social media.
So my suggestion was not to hold anybody's hand. It was because you have parents sign a contract, just to make sure that those parents with those kids in those specific classes understand the gravity of some versus other, and to help you build your schedule. Because if there are more parents who actually know, and to be perfectly honest, not all parents get as involved as others. That's just the fact of the matter, and you're not going to change that. So this is just a way to help you guys get your schedule a little more set as early as you need to do your budgeting, than versus having the freak out in September and having that many parents call you up and say, you need to get my kid out of this class because the class will succeed.
So,
That's the only reason why I make that suggestion.
Yeah. And so the point of mine, to be clear, my suggestion too, is that we want our students to aspire to a level of rigor and get past, am I going to be able to get an A, or can I handle this college level material? And will hopefully, and for our hope, that will build confidence. And it's important to provide equity and encourage students when appropriate to participate in those classes. But absolutely everything that's been said here today about the importance of making sure that the students and the parents truly understand the level of rigor, because the parents are the experts in their children, right? And so but when the students choose, they know and they choose. Rather, if up to that point they've been college prep or where they've been, their commitment to that rigor will determine their success in most cases, and that's what the research says.
So I have a couple of ideas. I thought the fair that you guys did last year on AP was awesome, and I thought it was very encouraging, and you had the panel and everything. The one thing that would have been even over the top was, you had like tables there for the different subjects that parents can then go and I know their teachers were there, but we didn't documents and amounts, and my daughter needs extended time. I know some other students with disabilities need to factor in extended time. So it's really important to get a handle on the course load. And then the other thing that happened last year, I think junior year, was that you had to take either English and history together. Like you had to do both APs, you couldn't split them up. And that also created a problem with course load. So I could see it was hard to imagine, I can take one AP or 3 APs. And so you're in this predicament. So I don't know if that's been split up, because I think that would also help in making a judgment.
Yeah, and last year that wasn't, because my daughter was a junior and she took AP Lit and honors history. We split that last year. For the first time, yeah, last year.
So that helps also with
that definitely helps, yeah.
Course load. Okay, so that's a real great thing. So then there's that, and I think the other thing I've noticed in APs, at least this is just an impression, that there's still this idea of doing group work within the AP and trying to satisfy that requirement. But what is not encouraged is study groups. And I know, like when I went to college, I went to an Ivy League school where there was no way you could do the group, all of the reading. It was just a human impossibility to read the amount of what was assigned. So there was a lot of group work, and so it was a lot of study skills. And when you walked in, you got a class on study skills and strategies. So I think something like that would also help students to learn, well, how do you study smart? How do you collaborate to get through these study guides? And then the last thing I will say about APs is that nobody does reviews. So right before a major test, there's no reviewing going on, because the expectation is that the student is old enough and supposed to be doing this. And I don't think that's always the case at the university level, or give kids the time to be getting groups and study. I have seen a movie going on the day before a test. So I don't understand why that happens, but I'm just saying that there are more things that can be done to support students. And I think if you guys give more of a handle on what exactly is expected of each class, then I think that contract goes both ways. You're asking parents and kids to commit, but before they commit, give them a really good handle on what exactly is involved in each class. And maybe that's a syllabus, maybe that's letting them look through books, seeing the real, and then I think then that's a fair exchange. And maybe in some way involving parents at the fair, so that, we can help them be mature in making that commitment and supporting them. So those are just a couple of ideas.
I was just wondering, have you found that the kids who are dropping in the first few weeks of September, are they predominantly the younger kids who are newly eligible to take AP classes, or are they predominantly kids who are taking a big AP course load and are just like, 4 was too many, 3 was too many, I can't deal?
More that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, I know you said that the teachers offer kind of proactive information sessions or Q&As, but it's up to the student to kind of go and seek that out. At some point after they mark, yes, I'm interested, do the teachers of those students currently ever take a look at the list of who's saying they want AP, so the teachers can do like a gut check and say, you know what, that kid might not be ready, maybe I should reach out and have a talk with them before the schedules are locked up? I don't know if I'm making sense. Where you kind of like do a current teacher. Okay.
Yeah.
Last year, the
They do them
teachers
in the
made
departments.
Okay, so there is some sort
Yes.
of teacher.
Department review.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, and if there's, is there any more on this topic before we move on? All right, so let's move on to honor societies at the middle school level. Thank you very much.
Thanks, everybody. I'm just, first of all, just excited and happy to give you an overview regarding the Middle School Honor Society that we are starting this year. I also want to take a moment to thank the 3 assistant principals at the 3 middle schools for their leadership and the hard work that they put in toward this in regards to putting this together for the district for each of the 3 middle schools. This past summer they got together to discuss what the priorities of this is, kind of what the overall view and purpose of this is, and in regards to the how inclusive or exclusive should a middle school honor society be, especially with the, we've talked about high levels of anxiety and things along those lines. Certainly we do not want to present any stress on students in regards to this honor society for any of the 3 middle schools. But we do want to certainly focus on 3 aspects that I think that as any parent we would want our kids to aspire to have. You know, to work hard in school, and that's that scholarship part of honor societies. The character piece with making good decisions in school and in life. And then, of course, service piece with being involved in not only your community, but also the school. And those are really kind of 3 tenets with the Honor Society for the middle school that we have. So in regards to the scholarship, whether you're on Honor Society or on High Honor Roll or Honor Roll, students need to be on one of those 2 for 5 out of the 6 marking periods of their last year and a half of school. So for current 7th graders, it would be all of 6th grade in the first 2 marking periods of 7th grade, and for 8th graders, it would be all of 7th grade in the first 2 marking periods of their 8th grade year. They would need to hit 5 out of the 6. So that's where we first draw the line in regards to who would be eligible regarding that. I know that we've sent out a lot of material at the beginning of the school year regarding this. I had sent out blasts to the parents, spoke to the parents at PFA meetings. I know the other 2 principals have done the same thing. Back to school night, I had spoken regarding that. And on top of that, we have it on our school website in regards to the other things that are required in regards to that. For example, the service piece of it, we have a school service where students need to demonstrate that they're actively and continuously involved in school activities. Certainly sports, performance at band concerts and chorus concerts are not included in that, but we're talking about if you're stage crew or helping out with other things in the school, certainly that would be part of that. Certainly we don't want to draw a line really at much, because again, we want to try to provide this intrinsic belief of doing well in school, providing service and being involved in school, and also making good decisions. So we really, even though we've provided multiple opportunities for kids and ideas, kids even this morning came to me and asked me what certain things count, what certain things didn't count, and certainly I'm like, absolutely, if you're involved in the school and that sort of thing. Certainly our goal overall in middle school is to prepare the kids for that next stage. We want to enjoy their time while in middle school as well. We don't want to take that away from them, but certainly developing that intrinsic belief of being involved while I'm highly academic and making good decisions is really important in regards to that. And then outside of school, we're looking at moving forward starting next year for any students that would want to look into being part of the Honor Society is 20 hours of community service. This year we're only requiring 10 because of the first year rollout. So there's a little bit of a give there for the first year, especially for maybe somebody that didn't see the information right away. They want to get their child involved in the community service. They're not trying to get to 20 hours, but certainly the 10 hours, which is not an extensive amount of time. Since our second market period is now over, students should have an idea whether or not they've been on High Honor Roll or Honor Roll for the last 5 of the 6 marking periods. So they should start getting an idea of whether or not they've done that. I know for my school, I can speak on that. We've sent letters out to the parents regarding where their students' eligibility are. Some students have already hit after the first marking period of last marking period for first one. They have met the eligibility of the 5 out of 6. We have a lot of 4 as well that also were sent out in regards to that. We'll be establishing a committee between with guidance, school administration, and teachers that will review the students. Their application for Thompson is due March 16th at 2:45, which is pretty much the end of the day. So just please check your school's website in regards to what their deadline may be in regards to that. And that's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? That's so quick.
Can you say they achieve this?
Yes.
Now, does it have an ending date? What is the reward of this?
So we're talking about that right now. So we're talking about an award ceremony in regards to providing students some kind of like a induction ceremony kind of evening where we would have the students invite them to the school and to do that. But we're still in conversation with some of those things. I know that the 3 middle schools have coordinated the fact that for the promotional ceremony on their gowns, they will be wearing a pin. That each of the schools would determine on what their pin would look like. So we're doing that as well at that point.
Was this already already done in Bay Shore?
Yes,
Okay.
so to some level, Bay Shore has been doing this.
Okay.
But when Ms. Fox, Mr. Homiak, and Mr. Gannon this summer got together, they certainly, there was a few tweaks, I think, in the Bay Shore model, and then they coordinated the 3 middle schools for all 3 middle schools to have it.
Now, I know for National Honor Society, it helps you with colleges. I think this goes to what you were talking about, what's the point? Is this just feel good about trying to promote excellence across the board?
Yes.
It's not like, okay.
Yeah, there's nothing, and that's what, there's the true Junior National Honor Society for middle schools, which are, we've decided that may not necessarily be something that we want for Middletown students because of that. Again, it's just another added thing for anxiety, stress, the requirements are there. We want to be more of trying to provide that intrinsic belief of being involved, working hard, making good decisions. And just going back real quick in regards to making good decisions in character, certainly the code of conduct piece is in there, so that will be part of that's what's evaluated in that in regards to students having discipline. And when it comes to attendance with lates and also academic dishonesty is also a piece of that, so that's also something important that we've expressed to teachers to reach out guidance, and also in our presentations to the students at their grade level meetings that we've had with them.
Okay. Any more questions for Mr. Curie before you? All right. Thank you, Mr. Curie. Thank you very much. All right, let's move on to Middletown Friends of Diverse Learners with McGallic.
So our meeting for February was supposed to be next week, but we realized that we were back to back with the next forum, and it's hard for our parents to get out, 2 nights in a row. So we are foregoing our meeting in favor of helping parents get out to the forum. So our next meeting will be in March, so we have that information. Also, we're continuing our inclusion campaign on social media, and of course we continue to request your support. We are publishing maybe 2 or 3 articles a week on Facebook and hoping that you all can pick it up. And I did ask Erica Lucchese, who does a lot of the posting, and she says that she's having a hard time. So here she says she can access but not post onto High School South, Thompson, Harmony, Nutswamp, Ocean Ave, and River Plaza. And there is no access to High School North or Fairview. So if you guys can maybe see me afterwards, whoever are the reps for those schools, just so that
I just walked in the middle of what you're saying.
Okay.
The
access to, what school are you with? North, yes. So Middletown Friends of Different Learners likes to post on Facebook pages, and there's no access.
If you go onto Facebook and ask to join, they should let you. If they don't, you can just contact me. That's been arranged.
Maybe if I can get your name,
Okay,
because I'm sure that's been done.
Okay.
I'm sure that's been done. So there's some kind of problem.
And if you want to send me an email about any information, I can present it.
Yeah, if you could give me your contact afterwards, I would appreciate that. Yes, so we're just trying to continue the conversation about inclusion and keep that alive. So that is that. And then as far as spring, we're going to have a dyslexia presentation, quite likely in April, and we're in the midst of finalizing the date on that. And then the district, there's a speech therapist who's going to put on My Beautiful Stutter screening, and that will be at High School South. And again, we're waiting on the date, but more than likely around May. So we also want to support that. So are there any questions about that or about inclusion in general? Sure.
Is a double way to sort of get the word out there?
Yeah, that would be great. Okay. I think it's easiest for our people to post directly, so that way it's less work for everybody. But when we don't have that access, then we're relying on whoever the administrators are of those pages to post for us. So I think that's what we're trying to figure out, those glitches. Okay, I'll send that to you. Thanks, Marcia.
Okay, now we can move on to the Board of Education with Pam.
Okay, Board of Education, we have our strategic planning Forum 3 coming up February 12th. I'm just taking notes for River Plaza. Writing to say, board update. Yes, strategic planning is Forum 3B. The script script is on the strategic planning page. It's on our district site. It's under February 12th agenda. It's kind of hard to find because it says February 12th agenda and you click there. Then underneath it, it's also the values, beliefs, and mission statement, so they're kind of right next to each other. But if you click on that February 12th agenda, I would like you guys to please read and prepare your answers to those questions that are asked in the script. It's basically asking the public to help us, to let us know how they think the district can best address the public's top 3 concerns that have now come out of these forums, taking into consideration our budget restrictions, which leads me to Mr. Donlin just called me while we were, just to give you an idea of how we work as a team. Mr. Donlin from the board just called me and said that on Twitter it says that our meeting tonight is at 7, but it's not, it's at 8 p.m. So the budget meeting is 8 p.m. this evening. We actually have a private session, 7 p.m. We're doing some interviews, but so the budget is 8 p.m. And so check that out, and then please attend the Forum 3B. Forum 3B is February 12th at 7 p.m. at High School South Cafeteria. So it's a little bit of a change in location from our usual meeting.
At which time?
That's 7 p.m. on February 12th. Tonight is 8 p.m. at High School North.
Right.
Pam, for next week, I know after the past meetings, I've been hearing a lot from parents, both at Thompson and at Nutswell, about what is this actually going to be? Because they've been coming to the meetings hoping, I guess, or expecting that it's going to be, here are 5 things the district could do. We could band, we could redistrict, we could close down schools, we could merge schools, and then they want to be able to react to those ideas that are kind of fleshed out to some degree. And it doesn't seem like 3B is going to be that.
So what it is we have other topics to discuss as well. So the top three, I'm trying to look at the script. The top 3 items that are coming up are, we have special ed with the dyslexia that we've heard a lot about in the forums. We also have social emotional learning. So we've tried to combine all of them to discuss them together.
But there's still, it seems like very high level. It's not concrete, like examples of, here's one way to fix this problem is to do this. How do you feel about that, public? Or another way to fix this problem is to do this. How do you feel about that, public? It's still very high level, like, would you pick social emotional learning over dyslexia services? It's almost like a ranking. When I read,
see, you're saying like specific cuts like that.
I think people, we all know there's a problem. So, we all know something's got to give. And people are like chomping at the bit to say, here's what I think is bad about banding, or here's what I think is the reason why redistricting would be the least painful, or whatever their opinion is. But they haven't been given kind of the structure or the format to give that level of feedback. I think a lot of people, what they've been saying to me is, yeah, we all know what the problems are. We all agree with what we say our big issues are. We know something has to be done. Let's get to that part of it and stop talking about the high level stuff. Because honestly, every time you go out to a meeting, you have to figure out your kids, or they're getting picked up by somebody else from practice. You have your mom come over to watch them, whatever. So people have invested a lot of hours already in going to the meetings, and also just like coordinating getting to the meetings.
Right.
And then they want to just feel at the end of it that they've made progress. I feel like we've come and there's been a lot of great information shared. It's been tremendous, the amount of data that's come out, but there's no like even draft, and I wouldn't call it an action plan because it's not choosing what we're going to do, but there's not even like an option plan out there to say, we could do redistricting. What might it look like at a high level, and what do you think? We could do banding. What might it look like, and what do you think? So that before anybody goes down a path too far, everybody's had a chance to weigh in at a high level on real options, not high level principles and theories.
I think the simple answer to that is we're trying to avoid cuts in, like you're saying, special ed or social emotional learning. We're trying to avoid that by handling this long-range plan, to your point. And the long-range plan can really save us a lot of money because we have an inefficiency, right? There are some schools that there are plenty of extra seats. There are other schools that are very crowded. And the number one complaint is class size, right? And we can all agree to that. And we all do want to have that conversation. Problem is, from my understanding, from talking to the administration, it's no longer we're going to either grade band or we're going to redistrict or we're going to do this. The idea is that we're going to have to consolidate at this point, and we're going to have to hire a demographer to help us with that, to assist us with that.
So when you say consolidate, that's some version of adjust which kids are at what schools?
Right.
Okay, whether it be via
That's gonna
banding
have
or
to happen.
redistricting or consolidating, merging schools or whatever.
Right, and do what's best for the schools and utilize our facilities to the best of our abilities. We have something like, I want to mention New Monmouth School, where there's plenty of seats for kids. We just don't, there's not kids in that school.
In the zone.
And they could use some more kids. I mean, they just canceled their gift auction. Or, I'm sorry, Ocean Avenue just, and that's like my school that I adopt River Plaza and Ocean Avenue, and I've been meaning to talk to them. They're not here today, but I want to know why. Is it because you don't have enough people contributing to your PFA? You know, at River Plaza, we don't have that problem. We have a lot of people at River Plaza. And so it's things like this. We're trying to promote equity among the district, throughout the district. And how can we do that? And it's going to be consolidation. And we're going to need a demographer to walk us through that and help us with that, which will take months. And that's why we can't give you we're going to do this or this. Also, we looked into, what was the district that did that put 10 different versions up on their website? Cranford. And they said, oh, what a disaster that
I can
was.
imagine that would be overwhelming. No, I get that.
So we're not going to do that now.
But I
That
think
was like
if
paralyzing.
It seemed
if
like
the
a great
demographer is
idea.
going to be asked to look at different options, so demographer, show us what banding would look like in Middletown. Demographer, show us what redistricting, if we redraw the lines, would look like. Demographer, show us what it would do if we merge these.
Yeah, it would be a little bit of everything. So we're
Okay.
going to say demographer, we have a problem here. We've got not enough kids at this school. We've got too many kids at this school. What do we do? This school's old. This school's new.
Okay.
What do we do? And he's going to probably say, put some kids from the old school in the new school. You know what I mean? And maybe repurpose that old school. So these are the kind of things that we need to talk about. But we don't want to say we're going to close this little old school because we don't know if we're going to. So
I
we
think
can't
it's
say
important
that
though,
to
like
you.
even just this conversation has explained a little more to me about what might be happening even though we don't have concretes. I urge you to tell everybody that because
I will. Some
I
of the other
think
board members don't want to.
folks are confused.
Because they don't want to be stoned.
And I know, and I do, I get
I
it.
know, Rachel. I'm
No,
like-
and I think the reality of the situation is very well conveyed with all the decks and the data. Like, obviously, something's got to give. We got to fix something. We can't just keep doing this. People are obviously very concerned about how it might affect their community, their neighborhood school, their child, their children, etc. So I think the more you can do to explain the bigger problem, and also maybe that there isn't going to be one silver bullet that fixes everything. It's going to have to be a blend, but that people know and feel that they have the opportunity to weigh in on whatever these changes might be, to the extent they can be described. And honestly, like giving it to a demographer, obviously a demographer, at least as I understand it, can do some analyses for you and give you an idea, but strategically, to guide the demographer to say, we would never do A, B, or C, so don't even consider that. Here are the things that are on the table. I think even that distinction might be
Right,
helpful
and
to involve the
that's
public
what
in.
Dr. George does. You know,
Okay.
he calls the demographer and he said, this is the class size we're looking at. We want 22 kids per class. You know, they'll do a transportation audit. They'll
Okay.
say, well, you can't do that. That's wasting money there. Don't do that. Do this, do X, Y, Z. Don't do this because it's just going to cost you money in transportation and then you're going to be back at square one. They're going to give him advice based on all the information, all the data that he presents.
Okay.
That's why he's always presenting all that data to us, you know, from the survey and just from...
No, the data's been tremendous. Like even just trying to look at it and digest it, I went through it again recently, and it's like you find something new every time you go through it. So I think we're data rich on that. There's so much information. I just am still kind of unsure with the process, like when the public has their chance to get up and say, have you thought about this? Like if, for example, banding.
Anytime you want. I mean,
But I don't even know, but they don't even know what to react to. So if you say, let's just say, if there's a hypothetical banding / consolidation proposal out there, and we're saying we're gonna take this, the kids who are currently here, let's say the kids who are currently going to Leonardo, for example, we're no longer gonna bus them all the way to South, we're gonna let them go to North. And then that's a real thing that people can react to and say, well, did you think about this? Did you think about actually need my kid to be on the bus longer because I gotta leave for work? Or whatever their considerations might be. Because from our shoes, we all have a view as to how these changes would affect us. And from where you guys are, you're looking at the big picture. How do we try to do this with the least pain to everybody? But just making sure that all of the considerations are on the table. I'm not saying they have to be weighed equally, because they can't, but at least that there's an awareness of how something like a grade banding, if it even happened in some version, would affect different populations within Middletown. So that it's all, there's not a chance that we get to the point where we adopt something, it gets approved by you guys, it gets voted on, and then the year later we're like, oh man, we never thought that it would do this to traffic by the train station, or whatever. things like that.
We've heard a lot of negative about the grade banding, we hear a lot of people saying, we don't want grade banding. They don't tell us why, they just don't want it. And that's not helpful. So that's why we ask these 3 questions on the script so that people can think about, what would the board have to do to do this? Or what would we have to be sacrificing in order to get X, So I think that these questions are really good that Schoolhouse Strategies presented to us. I mean, look at them, tell me what you think. So that's the kind of discussion we're trying to have, like a productive discussion about this. And unfortunately, the time where you would see, because we have to go into the writing phase, right, which is the strategic planning committee, which is the board members, Dr. George, and the administrators, and we have to actually do the work for you. Basically, we work for you. We're going to have a pen and paper and write it or type it, whatever. And then we present to you the strategic plan, and it's called like a hearing. And then you would say, guys, by the way, you didn't think of this. This is terrible.
Okay.
Go back
so
to
it'd be a
the
strategic plan draft, essentially, at that point,
it's a
because
draft.
Okay.
And that's the problem what people don't understand.
Yeah.
They think once it's in writing, that's
real.
it. And honestly, that's why some of the stuff that I'm saying right now is not in writing on the script. Because we would get a flood of emails like, how dare you, Pam Rogers, close this school.
No, I also think it might be helpful if for some of these things, like you said, people have an immediate knee-jerk reaction to something like banding or whatever, because they say, no, I don't want that. But they're saying, no, I don't want that, to something that's not even real or in front of them in any sort of even theoretical form. So it's like, it would be helpful if you guys could help the public understand, here are the things that we may or may not be using, and here's what they mean, and what we see the benefits are of something like redistricting or banding or whatever, so that we can get your perspective on what might be good about it and what might be a challenge about it. Same thing for redistricting, same thing for merging schools, whatever.
Yeah, go ahead, Dr. George.
Okay, if I can weigh in. First of all, the planning meetings for 3B have been excellent. So we've had meetings with Pam and the other members of the Strategic Planning Committee discussing and working through these issues that you're talking about right here with Dave Hespy and Lynn Strickland in planning meetings. And the number one thing we heard from you in the past about 3B, at every single forum, we've had at least an hour to give feedback. On top of that, we have 10,000 written comments. On top of that, we have more than 2,700 surveys, right? So we have a great deal of data. We've taken that data and really combed through it, all of us, looking at that with great detail to kind of plan what we're doing. But it was very important to the board and also to us as an administrative team, based on what we heard from all of you, that there be a significant time for the public to speak again. So we're planning for an hour and a half at Forum 3B to get feedback. Pam, you killed it on that. Everything you said was right on where we are, and I think that's because of all of our planning.
Yeah.
All the time we put together.
That you guys don't know about.
Ditto to everything Pam said. Let me start there. And then on top of that, let me say, from our perspective as an administrative team, based on learning from the past through this process, being it's our second time through, it's not our first rodeo, it's very important for us that we come from factual positions. So there's certain information that is absolutely crucial from the demographer and on transportation that has to be an independent perspective, not just from us directly, before we can say definitively, here are 3 separate options type of thing. So that's why for us, all along, it's been a 2-year process to get full implementation, right? There may be things in pilot format we can do this year. Part of getting there for us is listening to the public, reviewing all the comments, everything, discussions with the full board about, are we comfortable with this based on public feedback, or are we not comfortable for this? So that's why it's got to be a 2-year process. But I promise you, there will be an hour and a half as it's designed for the public to really give input. And like you said, I'm very proud of the work by the administrative team and the Board of Education to make sure that we have a plethora of information up there, factual information that clearly states what our issues are, right? From an equity standpoint. We have this class size issue. We know what that is. We have certain special education issues. We know what they are, right? We have For example, our Title I and our non-Title I schools and academic success and performance. And we're owning those truths and realizing in our non-Title I schools, we're performing at or above the state average and meeting benchmarks. And in our Title I schools, we are not. So from Pam's standpoint, we can no longer continue to do the same things and get different results as it relates to that. How far can we get this year and where will we go next year is really a conversation for us to go slow enough to get it right and make sure that it's grounded in public support as well as student success data and that it fits with our community values. So that's what we're trying to do.
Pam, I had heard from someone, there was a concern, because they looked at the agenda for February, and the very last item on the second page says the Board of Ed will vote on the strategic plan. And I'm looking at it right now.
February?
Under 845, the very last item, and then on number 3, it says Board of Ed will vote on the final strategic plan. And I think that's where there might be some concern raised, is because maybe parents or public feels like, well, wait a minute, how are they going to vote on the final strategic plan when there is none? So that's, I think, maybe where confusion might be generated from.
Okay, that's for February 26th.
The February 12th 3B agenda. That is the very last item.
Oh, 3B agenda. Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay, so what does it say exactly?
Number 3, the Board of Education will vote on the final strategic
so that's next
plan.
steps. Oh, no, okay.
Yeah, but it's on
Number
next
2
step.
above it says at a future meeting.
At a future meeting.
That's where people have been like, wait a minute, hold on. Because they may not have.
You
been through
scared me. I'm like,
everything.
how am I voting on
No, but I think if people are not reading it in a certain way, they're thinking, oh, they just see that, and they're saying, oh my God, Board of Ed is voting on it. They're
They
not
skipped over the
realizing-
line that said out of.
Yeah, they skipped the line right above it. It says future meeting.
See, this
Yeah.
is why we don't like to put things in writing.
Yeah. You got it. People gotta read it.
How something is presented.
At a future
is just as
meeting.
important as what is being presented.
Right. At a future meeting, it's the board's responsibility to. All right, so we'll look at that. We'll look at the language.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. Yeah, we'll talk about it.
The board has not given direction yet on the demography. We're discussing other thoughts from that.
The idea of the consensus of the majority of the board is that we don't want to use someone in our town who can be influenced by people in the town.
An important part of that, though, just for us to remember historically, that there was a lot of, even at our first forum, a lot of people spoke about how that demographic study wasn't accurate. But if you really look at the projections and what it said, it was highly accurate.
Yes.
But to that point, the board's also discussed, maybe it gives more credibility if you use a different demographer and it gets similar results and consistent with what the other demographer. So those are the kind of discussions that the board's been having. But just to be clear, that demographic study was not perfect, but it was pretty accurate. It was statistically accurate. Okay.
Okay, all right, any more for Pam before, on the strategic plan? Okay. Anything else? You good?
Oh, you okay.
All right, so that closes out our Board of Ed update. Just so you know, I was asked by Danielle Walsh to remind everybody, the President's Council is going to be on the 24th.
The 24th at 6:30, and there will be babysitting.
There will be babysitting available, so please let your parent association, I believe it's here, right?
Yes, it's in this room.
So again, President's Council, the 24th of February at 6:30, babysitting available. Please get that to your parent-teacher organization presidents and vice presidents if they'd like to attend.
Can I ask something? So the information for the budget hearing was put up previous to the last Board of Education meeting, so because we wanted people to know that the budget hearing was going to be up there. We had to move the time of that. We're going to be putting that out in a phone blast. We're also going to be putting that up on social media. If you guys can help us with your own, from, as Pam already said, from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock, because we have another.
We're interviewing.
Unless we decide to do the interview after, that's the only other solution that could be to not. But it's like, okay, all right.
We should have as a correction. So
Yeah, we'll push it.
the changes for tonight's meeting from 7 to 8 PM, and you
Yeah.
think that pushed out far and wide?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's 8.
We're gonna put it out, we're gonna do a district-wide phone blast, we're gonna put it on our Facebook, we're gonna put it on social media. But if you can help us, because there's additional interview that has to take place.
I meant to ask this before. Is there a separate deck for tonight that will be posted on that budget information part of the website? I know last week's, it was up, I didn't see it
Yes.
before I got there, but there will be
Yes.
a new deck?
Yes.
Do you know when that's going up?
I think we're sharing it tonight, it was going up tonight.
Okay, so not in advance, not like,
No.
okay,
No, yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, we don't normally do that with them because we have to give context with some
Okay.
budget. So
Yeah.
even if you can't attend the meeting, but you see the deck slide, but you have the video,
to
now you have
marry them,
context.
yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of how we do that.
It's already updated to 8 on the Facebook event at least for
Good.
tonight. It
Awesome.
was already shifted.
Yeah, well, while we
Okay.
were in here, I was already.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm already working on it. I'm already working on a phone blast too. To make sure. Okay, great.
All right, thank you very much for coming on a Wednesday again. We'll
Yeah,
see
thank
you
you
all
so
on
much.
Tuesday.